So thank you all so very much. Thank you for joining again. Yeah, that was a very good hour well spent. I hope you agree with me. Thank you. Thank you for joining back. Yes, it's good to see you. Just waiting for my guests to join back. Thank you, Bumi. Thank you, babes, for joining. Thank you, sis. Beulah, thank you for joining. Thank you. So, Prof is back on. Prof, if you request to join in, and then I'll bring you on. I hope you'll agree with me that that was a 1 hour well spent. Do you know, I feel like I know a lot about this vaccine already. So, I wouldn't even, is Prof has done a good job of trying to convince me, not confuse me. Do you understand? He's done a good job. Chick Belo, thank you, Ma. Thank you for joining back. Prof, welcome back again. Sis Dami, thank you for joining back. Welcome everyone again. Thank you. Thank you for joining. So I was just saying that, you'd agree with me that the last hour was a best hour well spent, Prof, I was saying before you joined that you have been able to convince me. I think you're convincing me. You have not confused me at all. So that's really good. I'm glad about that. So if we just go back straight to that question you were answering on the part one of this, talking about the technology. I know because Villa has a second question, which it's really important, and I've taken that down. So if you continue what you were saying, then I would ask that other question. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's a very important question, right? Because I think safety is at the heart of many people's concerns, and so maybe I take a step back, right?
Yes.
Again, without going into too much detail, when new drugs, medicinal products, when they come to the regulators for approval, there's a very simple question. I say it's very simple. Obviously not very simple, but there's, at least in terms of framing it, very simple consideration in front of the regulators. On the balance of probabilities, based on what we know, are the benefits that are going to be got from this medicine or medicinal product, do they outweigh the risks? Right? So, and those are two parts of the equation. And that's actually a dynamic thing. It's not like the product is approved, then you say, yes, the benefits outweigh the risk, and that's it. No, it actually continues throughout the life of that product, so that any time the regulators can say, no, the benefit risk profile has changed based on what we know. Okay, so going back to that point, when the product comes to the point of approval, the regulators get all of this information. They get thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of information. They don't take the word of the developers for it. They go through everything. On the one hand, they're looking at the benefits. So we talk of efficacy. They're looking at all of that information. On the other hand, they are looking at the safety. Okay, so they're looking at the adverse events. They're looking at the side effects. That's what you would call them. Whether they are solicited, whether they are things that actually based on the prior work. Because remember, by the time the people are given this at phase 3, it's not the first time. It would already have gone into hundreds of other people prior to that. So at that point, the manufacturer has an idea of some side effects to expect. So they would have listed, we're going to be monitoring these ones specifically. So those will be solicited. They're going to be asking them. But then there are others. They would also say, regardless of whether we've listed this or not, if you feel anything, if you have a headache, if you feel some pain, whatever it is that may be related to this, document it. So the doctors in the clinical trial, the investigators will document that. The patients will be asked to. So there's a fairly robust mechanism for collecting this information. Multiply that by the number of people, the thousands of people that you get this information from. I think that you will find out that there are not many bodies of evidence in many areas of study, or endeavor, that you would have this amount of evidence to support decisions. Now, does it mean that the decision you have is complete? No, you're making the decision based on the information you have at that time. So the question she asked, which I want to now kind of, get to the point of making a comment about, is whether the shortened follow-up has an impact on the safety. Okay. The answer to that question is, well, safety is an ongoing thing. So whether a medicinal product has been in the market for 10 years, believe it, even those that have been in the market for 15 years, they are still being monitored for safety. So any product that comes in will always be monitored for safety from that point on, precisely because of this point. because what you're seeing is based on the information you have at that time and
Yeah.
based on the controlled trial conditions. Once it comes and is being used in the real world, you're going to collect that information, and this is no different from any other treatment that gets approved for use. Now, this is emergency, right? It's emergency use authorization. So there are going to be some things, and yes, the shortened follow-up is one of that. But I don't believe that it has an impact on the safety of it. Because remember what I was saying, before it gets to you, it's gone to 7. When I say 70,000 people, I'm not counting the people in the previous stages of it. Okay, so it's gone to 2,000. So there's a very strong body of evidence to support that. Does that mean that people won't have side effects? Of course not. It doesn't mean that. That's why I said to you, some people will take Panadol and they have side effects.
They still have side effects. Yeah?
So there will always be some people that will react to something. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be lettuce. Nuts. People will react to it some way or another. So you can't rule that out. But you cannot, on that basis, then say, this can have side effects for everybody, because there's no evidence to support that decision. So I hope this helps.
That really helps. And I believe I hope Bill, I hope that helps you as well. The way you're making this sound to me, now I'm looking at this vaccine and I'm thinking, okay, this is just like Panadol that you take or something, because even if you were to have any side effects, this is expected with any sort of medicine anyway. So going on to Beulah's second question I took down before we went off that one. She said that she also learned that the protein piece used for the mRNA is genetically modified. So she said, can you speak to that, please? So I want to break it into two. Is it possible? Oh, she said she has rephrased our question. So can you explain what genetically modified means in the first place? I mean, for the benefit of those that might not know what that means, what does that mean? And then answering that question in terms of learning that there's protein piece in there. So what sort of response do you have to that?
So genetic modification in general terms means that you basically changed the natural order of the genes in whatever system you're talking about. Now, this is an interesting and important question, because I don't know where this came up, but I think we need to spend some time to clarify this. Okay. So, and maybe I need to step back again to kind of reiterate some of the points I made earlier about how the vaccines work. The number one point, none of these methods that I've talked about involves altering our genetic code. None of these. Now, I think there might be some confusion as to what mRNA actually is. Okay. So, I think everybody knows everybody has heard the term DNA. Okay. DNA is the original message, right? Some people will say message from God that is in us. That's what defines all the physical characteristics of the food. It's a very long message, very, very long, but it's a message, a long message. Okay. It's in all our cells, it's in all our nuclei, right? So, but it's still a message that is encoded. It has to be encoded. Otherwise, imagine, when they used to send telegrams, right? Those days during the First World War and so forth, and you wanted to send a really long message. If you didn't use a telegram, it could be a very expensive exercise. Each letter, right? So people came up with a way of shortening it. Pretty much the same. If you imagine the billions and billions of proteins and information and whatever else that is in the body, imagine trying to encode that in a letter. Our bodies couldn't contain it. Yeah. Okay. So this amazing design allows our bodies allows the message to be condensed into this code that fits nicely into this envelope, this imperfect body, but an envelope. But because it's in code, you have to read it somehow. Yeah. If you can't read it, it's useless to you. Now, obviously, it's not to us to read it because the mechanism is perfect. Everything works as it is. But as human beings, over the years, we started to understand how the reading of that message works. Because when you look at DNA itself, it doesn't make any sense. It's just the number of bases that are, ordered, 4 bases. Yeah. So what happens is that when the DNA is in the body, before the body can actually read it, there are 2 steps, broadly speaking, of reading it. The first step is transcription. Okay? So the body has a way of transcribing that DNA into a message that can then be translated by the body. That process of transcription is when DNA is converted to messenger RNA. And it's called the messenger RNA for a reason, because it would now leave where the DNA is, carry the message,
Carry the message.
go to where the proteins are or where the translators are. So the translators can translate the message.
Yeah.
So in essence, messenger RNA is the message bearer. Okay, so that's the first step. And then when the messenger RNA gets to where the translation system is, then it gets translated into proteins. Okay, so the messenger RNA is the connection between the DNA in essence and what you see, because everything that you see happening in our bodies is mediated by proteins one way or another.
One way or the other.
And other things, but proteins primarily.
Yeah.
So what you see happening, that's exactly the way the viruses would work as well. So the virus would come. It might be an RNA virus, it might be a DNA virus, whatever the case may be. It would go into the body, trick the body, and use the body's own mechanism to create its own virus particles. And then not only does it do that, as it's going out, it presses a self-destruct button, boom, blows up the whole place. And just goes around, very selfish things, right? So what this mRNA does, so the mRNA she's talked about is exactly the same mRNA. Okay. But bear in mind that this is not our mRNA. Okay, it's an mRNA that encodes information that is for the virus.
That's for the virus.
So by definition, well, it's not our genetic material. So of course it's going to be different. It's not our genetic material, right? So that's one. Okay. Number two, any genetic material that is put into the body that either is supposed to create something that is similar to what the virus creates, well, it better be modified, because you don't want to create something that will be active.
That'll be active, yeah.
Right. So you have to modify it to actually make it inactive. It's like creating a dud grenade, right? So you have to modify it, because if you take a live grenade and say, yeah, I'm going to practice, guess what's going to happen? So you make sure you modify it so it has no way of exploding. That's the whole point, right? So when you say the mRNA is modified, well, that's why it's a drug. Of course it's modified. Of course it's going to be different. If it's not modified, then it's not a drug you're getting. You're getting a virus.
Yeah.
Right. So I think sometimes when people think genetic, number one, it's not genetic modification. As far as we're concerned, it's not our genetic material. It's not our genetic code. This has nothing to do with our genes. What's happening is that you're creating the messenger. So what the virus would do is that the virus would go in, go through the same process. It will inject its genetic material into the body, and then mRNA will be created. Then the mRNA will now instruct the body to create the entire virus, the infectious one. So if you don't modify that mRNA, like I said, you're just infecting the person. So what you then do, what this mRNA does, is that it goes, intercepts the process. Again, like during the war, you intercept the message, you create a dot message, change something there that completely changes what it can do, but it has an impact of now giving you the advantage. So then it creates those proteins, even though they can't infect you, the body can recognize them and prepare to fight them.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Prof. Honestly, I don't know if I'll need to take paracetamol after this myself, because the information is just flowing like that. But it is very important for us to understand these things, because we hear different things and we are so quick to want to make judgment on how these things work. So I read an article, and I think it was Beulah who shared it. Beulah, you shared that article on ISI, and I read it. So this doctor said, because my understanding of the vaccine is that if you take the vaccine, you're not going to get like the virus. Your body is in that place to respond properly, and da da da. Anyway, I read the article, and the doctor said that the vaccine doesn't give you immunity for the virus. So because you've taken the vaccine doesn't mean that you still can't catch the virus. You can still catch it, but what it does is that it helps your body to respond in a way that would not be as bad as if you didn't take the vaccine. So can you say something to that, please? So what does it mean if people, because the main thing is, she ended her article by saying that, oh, she's a frontline worker. She has kept her family and herself safe by just washing her hands, using a mask, and all of those things. And if she's done that for how many months so far, and she's not caught the virus, why does she need to take the vaccine to keep herself safe? So what can you say to that, please?
Well, what I would say to that is, well, I'm happy she's been able to keep herself safe and her family. Of course, not everybody's been able to do that. So we always need to be careful in using our own personal experience to prescribe what others should do. But that's beside it. I think that it's a play on words, okay? And I'm not even sure that it's an accurate play on words, okay? Because once you talk of immunity, remember how I talked of the immune system and how the immune system works?
Yeah.
The immune system is completely irrelevant when there's no infection. Right?
Well, of course, because
so
nothing is fighting or protecting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Precisely that. The immune system fights against stuff. So if there is no infection, then what do you mean by immunity? Right? So I don't know whether this person doesn't, I really haven't seen the article, so I need to be very careful what I'm saying. But just going by what you've said, it's just a play on words, which again is not a very accurate play on words, because number one, like I said, if you use the term immunity, you're already inferring that there's an infection. Okay, there's a difference between having a protective barrier, like I said, like the skin. So when you talk about what the skin does, it's not necessarily immunity. The skin is a barrier. So there are things that we're just not even getting. Once they get in, then you have immunity kick in, right? Because it starts to fight it. Now, so that point being made. Now, the second point, I think the second point is kind of related to the first one, because the reason we're having this conversation already is because the virus will get in. You know, remember I started by saying, regardless, with all the barriers and all the defense systems we have, infectious agents will get through. That's why we're having this conversation, right? The vast majority of times, you don't feel anything is happening because many of them get stopped at the skin, many of them get trapped in the, you know, the nose. So nothing happens, and that's the vast majority of time. Right now, once we start having this conversation, there's already the premise, it's based on the premise that there is an infection or there is a breaching of those natural barriers. Okay, so again, I think it's a moot point that's been made. Okay, because you know, so to make the point, to drive home the point, like I said, the reason our bodies are so wonderfully and fearfully made and great at what they do is because of how they can respond to all of these different agents, different types, you know, different sources, and find a way of dealing with every one of them. Now, when somebody says, I've been safe, like I said to you, and that's, you know, when people talk about asymptomatic infection, it's not every infection that happens that you know about. It's not every infection that actually becomes symptomatic, right? It doesn't mean your body's not working. Okay, so the point is this: a vaccine is not about preventing you from catching the virus.
Okay.
Right? Because, like I said, the whole point of needing a vaccine is the assumption that you will catch it. That's the whole point.
Right. Yeah.
If it's not going to breach, then why do you need a vaccine? Right? So I just need to make this point clear, because sometimes you know, people can make these disingenuous arguments and they sound very clever at face value, but when you think about it, it doesn't actually make sense what is being said, right? Or maybe because it's a lack of understanding of what is being considered. So a vaccine is premised on the very fact that the infectious agents will breach your natural defenses, and so this is about making sure that when they do breach the natural defenses, you're able to fight them off, and fight them off so quickly that your body doesn't even notice what's happening. That's exactly okay.
Yeah. Wow. That, do you know what you've said there? So the vaccine, taking the vaccine doesn't prevent you from catching the virus. That, I hope everyone heard that. I hope everyone heard that. So there are a few comments here that I really want to go through very quickly. So Beulah said, she will send you the article so you can read it. Yeah, thanks, sis. Please send Prof the article. Let him read it. And then she said, I think when I think of being injected a modified virus, I think of being injected a synthetic substance, and I might be totally wrong. So what do you say to that? So I mean, this is someone just hearing their fear, you know, okay, this is something that has been modified and you're giving me in my body. I don't know how I'm going to react to it or how my body will respond to it, but just the thought of me taking something that has been modified is just not going down well with me. What do you say to that? And she said she might be wrong, but yeah. So from a scientist and a doctor's point of view, what would you say to that?
My question would be, do you take ibuprofen or Panadol?
I'm sure the answer would be yes. I can
these
answer
are synthetic. These are synthetic substances.
All right. So thank you very much, Prof, for that. So You've got your answer right there. So if you take ibuprofen and paracetamol and all of these things, they are synthetic products, and that's what it is. Busola says, therefore, taking the vaccine doesn't prevent you from still infecting others. It only serves to protect you from getting a serious case of COVID-19, right? Is that
So that's a very important question right there, actually. And I want to dwell on that a little bit. That's an insightful question because it actually talks about the design of the clinical trials. And it's an important point because the way science works, science is not guesswork and it's not philosophy, okay? Science will pose very specific questions and get answers based on how an experiment is designed in order to answer those specific questions. You might be able to infer other outcomes from there, but there better be a very clear trail of evidence. Once the evidence is not there, all you can say is possibly, but I couldn't tell you, right? But based on what I know, there's no reason why not. Now, the clinical trials that were designed, particularly the Pfizer-BioNTech one, did not consider the possibility of asymptomatic transmission. Did not measure that. Okay? Not that I didn't consider the possibility of it, but it was not measured. So it does not give us that answer. So you're quite right. Based on the information that we have, what the vaccine does is protect the person that has taken it. We don't know. I mean, it follows, right? It follows that if you don't have symptoms, the chances of transmitting the virus are very much reduced, right?
That's right.
But reduced, does that mean it's zero? We don't know the answer to that. This is why you're hearing people say, even if you've had the vaccine, please still practice social distancing. Please still wear a mask. Because for all we know, you might be fine, but you might just be giving to another person. And the other person might think, oh, this person has had the vaccine. Great, we can have a party. Well, if you haven't had the vaccine, maybe not, right? So it doesn't mean the answer is no. It just means the answer is we don't know. And based on that, we have to act out of the abundance of caution and assume that this is going to be the case.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Prof. So basically, if you've taken the vaccine, you still need to wear your mask, you still need to stay away from people as much and all of that stuff. So thank you. Philip says that red vaccine development is a long, complex process, often lasting 10 to 15 years. Please, can you throw more light on this if this information is wrong? I don't think it's wrong. I think you addressed it earlier. You said that...
Is this recorded? How can people access this afterwards?
They can, yes, they can. So people can, so for whoever missed the first part of it, they can go back on my page and watch it. So Sister Dami has a question here. She says that has the vaccine been tested on pregnant women? Actually, maybe I can answer that. I feel like a pro myself now. Actually, they say that if you're pregnant or planning to be pregnant or something like that, you shouldn't take it. So now that's my understanding. So, Prof, from a scientist's view and the learned person on this one, what do you say to that? So, because she said that, and is it safe for a pregnant woman to take the vaccine just like the flu vaccine?
So the answer to the question, because what you provided, Bibi, was the consequence of the answer to the question. But the answer to the question is, remember what I said earlier? The way science works, you posit a hypothesis, you design an experiment to address that hypothesis, and on the basis of that, you confirm or disprove it. But you don't start claiming things that you don't have evidence for. The vaccine was not tested in pregnant women. Okay? So because, Beulah, of course, whoever that is. No, it's not Beulah, it's somebody else. But because it was not tested in pregnant women, and this is standard for every new drug you would have. So you might see, for example, Pepto-Bismol, for example. You might see that it says if you're pregnant, don't take it. It's exactly the same reason. It doesn't mean it will harm you. It just means because it's not tested in this group of people, the advice is don't take it until such a time as when we have evidence to support that it's safe there. So yes, the guidance is please, if you're pregnant, do not take it. If you're planning to be pregnant, I believe this is for the Pfizer one at least. Well, if you take the vaccine, you have to wait at least a couple of months. There's a specified time. You need to double check that. But I think a couple of months before you get pregnant. If you are pregnant, don't take it. And remember what I said, out of an abundance of caution. Nobody is saying it's going to do anything to you, but then we don't have evidence that you've got.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if it's just me or it's everyone. Prof, I think I lost you for a few seconds there. I'm not sure if you're back yet, but viewers, please let me know if you can still hear me. Prof's screen is buffering, so I don't know. Maybe it's an issue with his internet because I can't hear him. But I'll just go on anyway. You know, it's just important for us to understand this. Prof, are you back? I think the signal might be playing a bit with us right now. Prof, are you here again? Prof,
Yeah, I can hear you now. Yes,
fantastic.
I can hear you now.
Yes, I couldn't hear anything. I was talking to
Yeah.
myself. Okay, yeah, thank you very much, everyone, so they could hear me. Yes, so I was saying thank you for that. That is really, really helpful. Now I want to touch something very quickly. The conspiracy theories that we have all heard about. And because this is not just even me, my own husband, I can even say it, my own husband refused to travel.
What's that?
Do you understand? He refused to travel because he said, oh, you know, you don't know all these things. What if they say that because you're traveling, you must take the vaccine by all means? Like, and you know, thinking of all the conspiracy theories around, oh, it's the 666 thing, the vaccine is a chip that they put in your body and all of that. What can you say to that, please? Because I know, I mean, you're also a person of faith, so you must have heard about all of this as well. So from a scientific point of view and from all the medical knowledge that you have, what do you have to say to that, please?
You know the funny thing, baby, I actually don't think this is a question of science. Because you see, when people make these claims, they are not providing any evidence. So it's not actually anything based on evidence. It's something based, I call it more of a philosophical discussion, because it's based out of people's fears or desires to control others or whatever it is. But it's, you know, and I would say two things, right? Or I'll look at this in two ways. The first thing I would say is, you just said I'm a person of faith, right?
That's right.
And like I said at the beginning of this discussion, I have been personally, okay, with these two hands, been involved in developing, okay, creating, manufacturing, whatever you call it, and going through the approval process for medicinal products that are being used to treat people. Okay. Now, let's consider what the conspiracy is saying, that there are chips. So, what is being said is this: the process of producing a drug, right? Let's even forget the entire clinical trial and all of the stuff that we talked about, because that is, I think I've already talked about how detailed that process is and how much oversight there is. Now, before you actually get a license, there's regulatory oversight of a number of things. Number one, the clinical trial is just one part of it, where you're building up evidence, and the safety part of it, that's just one part of it. There's a regulatory oversight of actually how you're manufacturing what you're manufacturing. So you're going to provide details of every single ingredient that is in the product that you're manufacturing, nothing left out. Okay? You're going to provide details of the methods you're using to test it and prove that these methods actually work and show how you develop these methods. There's a lot of that documentation that goes into it. Okay? And then when that is all done, it goes to somebody or people, not just one individual, but a group of people who advise the regulators. So different people look at different aspects of this and provide a report, and then there's an advisory board, and then a decision is made and all of that. So think of all the people that are involved in that. Now, before, again, as part of rolling it out, when all of this stuff is developed by research and development, it goes to manufacturing. There's manufacturing where other people have to put all the different components in, right? Again, they know what's in there. Then it goes to quality assurance, where they have to test it and check, right? So think of all the different people that are involved. So the question I want to ask is this: if you're saying that there is a grand conspiracy, what you're saying is either the people of faith, like me, who are involved in the process or have been involved in the process, are complicit in this conspiracy, right? Because it means, having been involved in this, we can see what's happening and we're keeping quiet about it, and therefore we're part of it. Or you're saying that there are no people of faith who are involved in certain parts of it, and somehow, you know, for some reason, it's just impossible for somebody who's involved in a particular aspect of it to be a person of faith. So it's got to be one or the other. It can't be both, right? Because I use myself as an example. So when you look at me, you have to be saying one of these two things. Either that if I was involved in this particular process, one way or another, involved in doing it, either that I am complicit in it, so I know exactly that these so-called chips are there, but I'm lying about it, or that I am not involved, and there are no other believers involved in the process at all. Think of all of the different. Now, I think that boggles the mind, and I say people of faith, and that's even coming from me is even incorrect and arrogant, because it's assuming that it's only people of faith who would talk about this.
The right thing.
Exactly. But this is not about being people of faith. There are people who have integrity. So if you're saying that everybody in the entire supply chain has no integrity, if that's the case, then the world is already gone. It's not this vaccine that will make a difference. Everything is gone, because think about all the things I told ibuprofen, Panadol. So that's what I mean is a philosophical thing, because I don't think we're thinking about the way some of these things we're saying, right? If you see how people, how I talked about, I mean, I've personally been involved in, with people who've been involved in this effort, and how hard they've been working, how much some of them are invested in, and these people are not people, it's not like they are making millions. These are people who are doing what they do because they love doing it. But then it's very easy to point fingers. Just what I said. I really don't know what. So that's the way I would address that. Okay, that's the one. I said two things. That's the one thing. The second thing is this. Now, people have said things like, going back to that publication you talked about. Oh, I'm fine. I'm fine. My family and I are fine. Why do you need to take? Now, imagine that I imagine I'm talking to people of faith. Imagine that you're a pastor or a leader of people, a church, right? And then you have some people who have come to you and they've said, I'm really struggling with a particular challenge, whether it's depression or something like that. Now, maybe 70% of people in your church don't have that issue. Are you saying to me that you as a pastor will say to them, well, everybody else is fine, so why don't you deal with it? Is that what you're going to say to them? Or are you going to find a way to help them? So again, I think the fact that there are people who are not going to fall sick with COVID regardless, does that mean you don't help those who do? What exactly are you saying? If somebody comes to you and says, there's a challenge, I have this situation, maybe even the person got themselves into some sort of trouble, again, comes to you as their leader and says, please pray for me. Would you say, no, I'm not going to pray for you. I believe that this is going to be your just reward anyway. There's no point in praying. I know how this is going to end up. Or are you going to say, you know what, let's pray? The point I'm making is that you do what you can do. I don't think it's an excuse to say that because what you can do may not work, therefore you shouldn't do it. It's, when you say that, if you've thought it through and you're saying that, then you have to decide whether you're callous or whatever, you know what I mean? Because again, bottom line, when I talk to you about this, Bibby, I say people like us, you and me, number one, we're in the age range where we probably wouldn't even qualify for a vaccine for the next few, whatever, months or whatever. Exactly. Number two, we're also in the age range where, and health, thank God, situation where we're probably not as much at risk.
That's right.
If at all, we're not at risk. Does that mean then that we don't care about other people? So I think that, and that's why I say it's a philosophical consideration. So I think that when people make some of these arguments, maybe they should shine the torch back on themselves and consider what I just said, and then ask themselves, what exactly am I saying when I say some of these things?
Wow, that was so powerful. Honestly, I think, well, people, you've heard it from Prof. It's just one of those things. Look at it. They said that, oh, yeah, 18666. They're giving you. Laulu says that why would they want to trick people to take chip in vaccines when people are willingly being chipped in some countries? I mean, I don't know what that. Prof, do you have any response to that? Because she said that people are willingly being chipped in other countries, in some countries. So why are we tricking people into taking the vaccine? So that's one question that she's asked.
But I think it's a rhetorical question the person asked. The person is basically saying there's information because if the premise is that the vaccine, whatever chip or whatever, the idea is to track people. People have Alexa. People have all of these things. People have the information and provide it everywhere. People are already offering this information freely. Why on earth would anybody need to go to such lengths just to get information that they can get freely. I think that's the point the person is making.
Yeah, so
Question.
so she's buttressing your point. She actually said, yes, Beulah, you're right. So that author, the author of that article I mentioned before, she didn't say that people should take it or not, you know, she just said our own view. And as you rightly said, it's one thing for people to say things that based on what they've considered, and they will make their response. But so now, coming to the ultimate question that I'm sure we all have, because you've taken us back to school. Even the people that were not science students have become science students tonight. The commercial students, the art students, everyone has turned to science students tonight. You've taken us back, right? But now, with every information, given all the information you've given us from what vaccines are, how they're made, the process of going through from the manufacturing to us, the consumers, and the different type that we have as well. And you've addressed also the conspiracy theory. So would you still advise us to take the vaccine?
Well, I guess my answer would be another question. Why not? Right? I think that, you know, based on what I've said, right? The question, for anybody that says, I don't want to take the vaccine, my question would be, why not?
Why not?
Right? Remember, of course, there are practical, you know, aspects of this. Like I said, there's a sequence. There are people with any situation, you're always going to give it to people that are more vulnerable. Okay? So I'm not talking of that because, of course, you shouldn't be taking it because there are other people that need to be taking it right now. Then that's what you should do, because if you take it, it means somebody else who needs to take it will not get it right now. Okay? So that's one thing to bear in mind. Second thing is, of course, that there are places where it's contraindicated. If you're pregnant, you have a history of allergic reactions, whatever, there are stated, you know, reasons why you should not take it. So even if you do want to take it, you shouldn't, because, you know, some of those side effects would come, right? So the rest of the situation would be if you are you are in a position to be offered the vaccine to take it. Question would be, why not? Based on the conversations we've had, why not? Right? So
okay. So you see, I'm just gonna pick the question, the comments from the bottom up. Faith says that I'll answer back and say, why should I take it? So Faith, you might want to watch the part 1 of this. So Prof has given us quite a lot of information about vaccines, and I honestly actually feel like if I ever get to the point of taking the vaccine, I don't have a problem taking it, you know, because of what you've told us tonight. So yes, if you watch the part 1 and then this part 2, hopefully that will help you to answer that question. So Omo Koyemi has taken us back to science again. So he said that, why is the vaccine dose twofold? Yes, that's correct, actually. Yeah, because they said that you take one after 2 weeks, then you take another or something like that. So why is it in twofold?
It's simply speaking, it's because of the way the immune system works. Okay, so the adaptive immune system works on most effectively on something called memory, right? So memory is what it means, right? It remembers, right? But in order for it to be most effective, it has to have enough memory cells in circulation that are able to respond very quickly. So it's been found just through development and testing that rather than trying to get the body to get to that level of immune response with one shot, it's better to give it in steps. So you give the first one, the body kind of is primed. You give the second one, then the response to the body is much higher. And then you have the level of response that means that you are in a much better position. Now, that doesn't mean that the first dose is not efficacious. It is. It's just that the immune response is not as high as when you have the second one. Okay. So it's not all vaccines that require 2. Right, there are some that, you know, it's just that when you do the testing, you kind of see what happens. That's why you have to go through those steps. You find out that, say, for example, the testing had been done and it was found that actually you have one, and then when you have the second one, nothing happens. Then you say, well, there's no point in having 2. You have to just have one, right? So that's, and I don't know whether you follow the Oxford one where they had 2-fold doses, and then now they're realizing that actually maybe you have half a dose or a low dose and a high dose gives you a better response. Nobody's quite sure why. But these are some of the things you test out. But ultimately, it's about making sure that the immune system has enough of a response that when that virus, if that virus does come through, you wouldn't even notice it because it's just completely wiped out straight away. You know,
straight away. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you, Prof. very, very much. I'll take the last question because I don't want us to spend another whole hour. I know you're,
No, I mean,
you give, for me,
it's
it's
almost
like,
2 hours now.
I
Yeah.
know, right? But this is good information you're giving us. There is a question from Sister Dami, and she said that why does it look like it's being forced on people? So I think for me, if I can just say something to that, this is probably more of a perception thing as opposed to the reality of things. So is it, I don't feel like it's being forced on people, but what do you, I mean, what do you think? Because I don't think that they're saying that everybody must take it. Well, until they say that before you can travel, you have to take it, then I'll say that yes, they're forcing it on us.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I without understanding where this question is coming from, I think it's a perception thing, and I agree with you. I think that there's nothing not right now saying people must take it, but there's a moral question around it. I think maybe that's what this person is reacting to, right? People say, because people express their opinions, right? There are some people that feel very strongly and they say very strongly, you should take this back. If not, you're a terrible person, a wicked person, and so forth, right? And then there are some other people that say the opposite. Ultimately, I think that is a moral question around this. Okay, I've said this before, because when it comes to infectious diseases, the impact of your decision is not just on you, it's also on other people around you, right? And so that's why, so when people are saying, we want as many people as possible to take this, at least those who need to take it, right? Because if all the people who are vulnerable, who are at risk of developing severe COVID, and who are at risk of going to hospital and, God forbid, passing away, they are all fine, nobody will really be talking about this, right? Because the rest of the people,
Absolutely.
But if by your decision you're preventing that from happening, then it becomes that, well, you might think, oh, I'm not taking it, I'm fine. But if your decision is affecting the other person and therefore causing them to lose their lives or something, so I think there's a moral part to it. So maybe it's that pressure that the person is feeling. But as far as the law is concerned, not in this country anyway. There isn't any law that makes sense that people must take it. And I think that the point that you made about airlines and so forth, I think that's an interesting one to watch, okay? Because I know what you mean. In principle, it might not say it's mandatory, but if in practice it is, then I'll give you an example right now. Some places, in fact, many countries, before you can go anywhere, you have to test. You have to test.
That's right, yeah.
It's not mandatory to test, but if you want to go to the country, you say, well, I need to be sure that you are safe.
Have this,
now, my question goes back to what I said earlier. If you were leading those countries and you cared about the welfare of your people, what would you do?
True. That's a fair question. Very fair question. And I love that. I love that. I think we just need to be a bit more open-minded with these things. I always just think about the people who are on their deathbed, and they're just about to take their last breath. And someone walks into the room and says, okay, do you know what? I've got this vaccine. If you take it, it will keep you alive. Forget it. At that point in time, that person won't be asking questions about whether, oh, you've got this in the vaccine or you've got that or what kind of vaccine. And the very, very first thing they want is just give me the vaccine and then we can talk about whatever the side effects will be later, right? But I mean, this is
that by that time it's probably too late anyway.
Exactly, and so as you said, we're not being forced to take this vaccine. Laulu says that yes, I suppose the frustration around lockdowns, vulnerable people, and economic impact on the society makes it feel like it's being forced. Exactly, it's true, and this is why I said it's more of a perception thing. We've just heard about the tier 4 now that we are going into. In fact, I said let's just go back to national lockdown like we were the first time, so that we know that we are on lockdown. But we have survived this far, and I pray that God, who has kept us, will continue to keep us all. Thank you all so much for joining tonight. Omokoyemi says, please, let's do a part 3 and part 4 for this. Prof, see, the challenge has been thrown at you. So you have to give me a date that you're free to come on, because this conversation is going to go on for a bit, and it's important, especially for our own people. I saw it on the news on Friday where they said that people of the minority are not taking the vaccine as much as the other. And we don't want it to be a case of, oh yeah, we brought something out for you guys, now you're not taking it or something like that. Let's not work from the place of fear. This is why it is important to get informed, get the knowledge, get the information. So can I just say that Prof is not on Instagram, unfortunately. So tonight he had to use his wife's Instagram account to join this. So I can't say that go and follow him on his page or whatnot, but he's on LinkedIn. You see, that's why he's a professor. He's on the professional site. That's where you will find him. So you can get him on LinkedIn if you want to follow him. We're going to have the conversation again. I'm going to post the video on Facebook as well. So for people who are not on Instagram and would like to watch on Facebook, they can watch it. Yes, I agree, Beulah. Yes, definitely more people need to hear this. It is important. I believe that for every single word that you have spoken tonight, Prof, you have helped at least, if nobody else, me, to know that if it gets to the point of take the vaccine, I will say, here is my arm, give it to me. Do you understand? Because of the information I have right now. Beulah said, anyway, she thinks she will be waiting before she takes the vaccine, Sha. Well, yeah, that's the thing. We still have to wait. We have a long list. The waiting list is very long, you know? So it's not something that we will get immediately like that anyway. But thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Thank you for making Prof welcome as well. And Prof, you have added to us tonight. Thank you so much. I don't know if actually there was one thing I was going to say. Please and please, I know that when we see all these memes on like Facebook or WhatsApp and all of that, they are very funny. You know, like someone takes the vaccine and they're like that kind of a thing. Please, let's not join them in spreading these things. You know, there are some people who don't have that intellectual capacity to understand that things are not like that. And they will literally just take it at face value and say, never, no one in my household, nobody would take this vaccine, even though maybe that could have saved them, you know. So let's not join them by sending all those things or sharing those memes. I know they're funny because even sometimes when I watch them myself, I would just start laughing like ha 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 ha. But of course, it is okay for me to laugh because I understand I can't make any decision based on that, right? But there are people who don't have that level of understanding. So because we have to contribute whichever way we can contribute as well. And so if there are any of you who still doesn't wear your mask, please do wear your mask and wash your hands as well. So Dr. Okemefuna, thank you so very much. Philip, yes, you know, I really want to travel this December and God will forgive you. If we had this conversation, maybe we would have been traveling by this weekend now. But anyway, we can sort out our family matter offline. Prof, thank you so much. And guys, can I say that, as I said earlier, for people who didn't join the first part, so myself and Prof host a talk show that is called Sunrise. So we both attend the same church, House on the Rock, London. So we have this talk show that goes live at 9 o'clock on Sunday morning. So it's a live show where we discuss about different things. So if you want to hear more about this vaccine, because I'm sure we're going to be talking about it, it's only 30 minutes conversation anyway. So come and join us. Find House on the Rock on Instagram, on Facebook, and you can follow us anywhere that you feel comfortable with. So thank you very much. Yes, Sister Dami, yes, I know you're a frontline worker, but don't worry, God has got you. Prof has told you, see, he's in your church, he's your church member. So if you take it and something happens, you can go and meet him and say, Prof, you said I should take this thing now. You know, but trust me, it is something that yeah, we have to contribute our own. So thank you all so very much. Prof, people are thanking you. Thank you so much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'll definitely bring you back for part 3 and part 4 when we see the development of things, maybe in a couple of months. Let's just see what the reaction of all of this will be. And then we can come back again to discuss it. Yeah. Thank you so very much, everyone. God bless you. I hope you enjoy your Saturday night. So it's a night now. And enjoy the rest of the weekend. So thank you all. Bye. See you soon again. Bye, Prof. Thank you. Thank you. Bye. Okay, so we've gotten to the point now that I say that people should please drop off so that I can end the live. I don't like to just end with people still on there. I can still see some people there. Please, yes, you can drop off now. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for me. Thanks, Beulah. Thanks, everyone. God bless you. Sister Dami, God bless you. God will continue to keep you as a frontline worker, you know. Yes, and all the frontline workers as well, you know, God will continue to keep you all because you're all keeping us safe. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time. It's been like 2 hours. Yes, but thank you so very much, and see you all soon. Bye, Piazza. See you. Bye.